March 17th, 2015, Milford Planning Board is now in session. Okay, let's see what's on the
Make a
menu.
motion for the minutes.
Motion for the
Second.
minutes, made by Pat, second by John, all in favor?
Joe.
Joe, all in favor, unanimous of 3. There are no 81Ps. Endorsed site plan, 49 and a half Sumner Street, Fieldstone property income.
Okay. At
So
the
he
last,
need-
Yeah, just go,
You can go ahead.
Pete, do you want me to just?
yeah, just go through the change.
Okay, so the changes are, we tied into the second sewer per the sewer board. I had to add a manhole. And then I added a note regarding that recycling. I also added these 2 notes saying none of the water from the recycling, from the cutting of the stone will be in the sewer or any of the storm water. So that's it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to endorse the site plan.
Motion
Second.
made by Pat to endorse the site plan, second by Joe, all in favor, unanimous of 3.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Peter.
welcome. Your number 4, street acceptance referral, Roland Way. I've reviewed the petition for road acceptance in Roland Way submitted for consideration by F&D Central Realty. The road was final paved last fall and an inspection conducted. The road was built in accordance with the plans. I conducted a site visit this week, and the road is still in good condition. I recommend that the roadways be accepted by the town of Milford. I recommend that the town not formally accept the road until the applicant has submitted as-built plans to the engineering department for our records. The applicant has been notified of this requirement.
Make a recommendation, we send a recommendation to town meeting to accept the road, provided that the town has received as-built plans prior to town meeting.
Okay? Motion made by Joe, second by Pat, unanimous of 3. Road acceptance referral, Woodland Court. In review of the petition of the road acceptance of Woodland Court submitted by consideration by the Diageo Giannato Corp. This town was final
Giannato,
paid
yeah.
last fall and as an inspectors conducted. The road was built in accordance to the plans. I conducted the site visit this week, and the road is still in good condition. I recommend that this roadway be accepted by the town of Milford. I recommend that the town not formally accept the road until the applicant has submitted an as-built plan to the engineering department for our records. The applicant has been notified of this requirement. Okay.
Motion, we send a favorable recommendation to town meeting, provided the as-built plans are received prior to town meeting.
Motion made by Joe, seconded by Pat. All in favor? Unanimous of 3. CBA special permit, 146 South Main Street, CMRK Incorporated. The applicant requests a renewal of a special permit to allow for the placement of up to 2 5x5 portable storage containers at the subject property as located on the attached site plan for the purpose of collection of used clothing. SBL Section 3.2.5.1 specifically provides for a portable storage container in commercial and industrial districts by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The ZBA had originally granted a special permit last year for the containers for only 1 year. See attachment. Each of the storage container collection boxes will display on all 4 sides the St. Vincent de Paul logo and words clothes and shoes and book recycling, as well as various instructions and other pertinent information. The proposed location are all within the various parking lots and will not generate any new traffic on the sites. The proposed locations are developed after consultation with the Office of Planning and Engineering, and all situated so as to prevent interference with both vehicle and pedestrian circulation within the site. The proposed location is not within a public way or within a required front yard. Therefore, I recommend a favorable favorable report forward to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Larry, this is just a renewal, more or less?
Yep, everything stays the
You've
same.
had no problems with the placement?
No, no.
Certainly make it favorable.
Favorable, send a favorable recommendation to the ZBA. Motion made by Pat, seconded by Joe. All in favor, unanimous of 3.
And since nothing's changing at all, I don't see that they need to get another site plan approved. They already got one approved.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Motion for adjournment.
The only thing that we had, I didn't know if the board wanted feedback from the zoning meeting. I know we don't have the official
We don't have-
decision here, although that vote was taken. This is in regards to, as much as you may think it's about the teacup pig, it is not. It was about the situation on Hamilton Street and Free Street. I did attend the meeting for the board, and I made a presentation to the zoning board. The zoning board effectively went with their previous decision, and to be blunt, the biggest concern with the zoning board was, apparently, from what I could gather from the meeting, was the possibility of traffic going the wrong way and exiting out onto Hamilton Street, which I said makes it very difficult for us to come up with what could or couldn't happen when you're trying to figure out somebody's doing something illegal and you're trying to stop that. I said I have a tough time, we as a planning board, don't normally evaluate those types of issues. I was also somewhat surprised that the police chief sent a letter indicating, and it appeared to me that the police chief hadn't seen the plans, because his comments on the letter were such that he was questioning an entrance on East Main Street that never existed in the plans. So I don't know where that came from. And he also commented that the site distance on Hamilton Street, on Free Street, was better than Hamilton Street, which I find tough to believe because it's an illegal move on Hamilton Street. So site distance doesn't actually even exist. But if you did do the illegal move, it's actually better on Hamilton Street, because if you go to Free Street, there's a building, well, not only is that, if you go there, because I went there this weekend to make sure that I wasn't going nuts, the garage right next door on Free Street is right on the property line, so there is no sight distance looking back down Main Street, down East Main Street towards Main Street. So I wasn't sure where that was coming from. I told the board that at the meeting. That didn't seem to have much weight to it. And then the chairman of the zoning board went on about saying that they were comfortable based on the usage that was going in, that it was an auto parts store. So I then asked him, what protection do we have that tomorrow it's not gonna be an auto parts store? And the answer back was none.
Yeah,
But none of that seemed to matter, and I knew the answer to the question when I asked the question, because I knew just like they did anything else with the variance, they could have put in the variance that it was only for this particular owner, and if they wanted to build it, as long as it was an auto parts store, that's all you could use there, because that was the type of usage that they allowed. They didn't put that into their variance, so effectively, any usage that's commercial can now go into that spot, and we have to live with that. So, I obviously, we as citizens of the town of Milford have the option to go back. I don't know that we want to do that per se. We could go to court, but, that's really our only mechanism at this point. So I just wanted to bring the board up. I don't foresee necessarily us doing that, but it was disheartening to a certain extent. I understand why they made their initial rulings, but I thought we brought up certain points that gave them a mechanism to relook at what they had said and done, and that wasn't in the cards. But the problem, I guess the problem that I have to a certain extent in the process is that this board, the applicant came to this board with the variance request. We as a board made recommendations to the zoning board based on what was presented to us. Our recommendations to the zoning board, if we knew that this was what was gonna come back from the zoning board effectively, would have been totally different in the first place. So effectively, we never gave recommendations on the plan that got put in there, because the zoning board made changes to that plan, and that's very disconcerting, because at the end of the day, we're not even giving recommendations on what's gonna happen. The zoning board sets up the parameters for that, and our we don't really end up having a comment on on what any of those types of changes would be. And to me, those could be very material to the project. So in a certain sense, and not that this protects us anymore, but at least it gives me some feeling of comfort into what we do. I think we need to be very cognizant when we send a favorable recommendation to the zoning board as to what could come back to us. You know,
I think to your point, Joe, that we probably need to, when rendering an opinion or recommendation, I think we probably ought to change the context of the letter and give specific rationale, if you will. Because to your point, specific to commercial property, what they may be approving for one use does not prohibit future use. And I think we look at things, you know,
Yeah,
accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, I made
And
that point to them.
Unfortunately, because they're more of a relief board, they're looking at per
Mhm.
diem. So, you know, I think we need to probably come up with a better mechanism for relaying what to your point, would be considered crucial information for them to better perhaps formulate a decision.
Yeah, I mean, to me, based on our feeling about that entrance, if we knew that was, my recommendation to them wouldn't have been favorable. It would have been, don't give them the variance. Build it, you know, according to, we were trying to be,
Well, I think.
not easy, but trying to allow the applicant as much leeway as possible. To me, that came back to us in terms of something that we ended up we wouldn't have wanted to do.
I think when we look at this on a historical perspective, the other plans that we had seen for that location, absent of the one that came in for car storage, showed 4.
Right.
So, and based on those, they never required
Right, the variance.
a variance.
Yep.
So, I think we got slow played on this one, and it was unbeknownst to us. So again, I think this is why we need to come up with a mechanism in a written form that's more articulate to understand, because again, we did, to our thinking, we only wanted what we had presently approved, absent of you guys, and we just assumed that, you know, but for them, they
Right.
looked at it per diem, and we looked at it as a parcel that we had seen,
Before.
gosh, 2 or 3, you know, different scenarios, so.
Yeah.
But I mean, to that end, I mean, the only recourse I shouldn't say recourse, the only thing we can do now is.
Wait and see.
No, is
Sign the plan.
have Lena sign the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all you
Right,
have.
right.
And that, you know, I don't think it makes sense, and I don't think for this board, it's vital enough to go and certainly appeal it. Because I think Jerry would be of the mindset that he would be more prone to defend the zoning board, and then we'd have to spend money, and I just don't
Right.
think it's in any of our best interests.
Yep.
And again, we looked at this because we looked at it in a historical perspective. They looked at it per diem, and that was where the disconnect occurred.
And they went before the zoning board before they came here.
Listen, we got slow
You
played
know,
by the
that-
applicant,
that's the
that's what
bottom
happened.
line. They didn't even
and we
come here
didn't-
first. They went there first.
Well, no, they came here first for a recommendation.
Recommendation, we got
Right,
slow played.
right.
Based on coming out of that,
Right,
we
right.
we ended up with something that we didn't want.
And the letter that was sent to the
So did they.
ZBA via, from the zoning
Yeah,
board
But
was
then
read out
I don't
loud.
think it's to any detriment to them,
No, I know.
what they received, I don't think it's to any detriment to them.
Oh, God, no.
Again, I think the
Well,
best thing we
in-
can do now is instruct, or have Lena sign the plan
Yeah.
and move on.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the detriment to them in that if they have issues getting in and out of Free Street, they're gonna look for relief of, you know, why can't I get in and out of my site? But that may not happen. I mean, it is not a huge.
Well,
Reapply.
But you know, Joe, to that point, perhaps when they're having weekly deliveries and the truck is specifically in the winter, and the truck is having a challenging time
Yeah.
Take that
coming out of
time.
that, and he's holding up traffic, and then the police become concerned, well, then perhaps, to your
Yeah.
point, the chief will have a different mindset rather than what he wrote. But again,
Right.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
this isn't a question of right, wrong, or indifferent, this is a question of, we looked at this as a site specific to the other ones that had come in front of us, when we looked at, you know, traffic, the flow, and so on and so forth, for similarly sized buildings, so.
And also, there's, the two-way traffic on
mic's
Free
off.
Street. The residents on Free Street could start complaining about the amount of traffic that's
Yeah.
going back.
Well, I
and
think-
forth.
I think
You
that-
know, that's the other thing, where the traffic on Free Street is both ways. You know, in the winter, as you say, you never know what's gonna happen,
Well,
so.
again, I think I think
But
there's a
I-
carpet cleaner guy there, Lovejoy,
Right, the comment.
and the
Right.
way that building's orientated, there's not really much of a sidewalk in front of him as much as it was a
Oh.
driveway, so he
Driveway.
parks his vans there, so
Yeah.
again, this
Right.
may become challenging to try to get their delivery
Yep.
trucks out of there, but again,
Yep,
Yeah, we'll
that's
see
a
what
good-
happens.
Okay.
So anyways, that was the
but no,
report.
thanks, Joe, but again, I think the best thing to do is.
Yeah, I
sign
don't,
the
I don't,
plan.
I don't believe we have much of a choice
Nope,
either. at this
We
point.
don't.
that's the only thing we could do and
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
on, so.
But it's good to point that out to
And
the
that's what, you
board,
know,
what
we need
went
a
on,
vote,
what went
she doesn't
on
need a vote for that.
at the
No.
ZBA.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Pat to
Second.
return, second by Joe, all in favor, unanimous of 3, good night.